Well, hello. Great to see you again. Are you ready to dive right into today's lesson? Okay, let's do this. All of the divine rebellions we talked about in our prior episode had a common theme of subverting God's plan for humanity. In that video, I mentioned the Tower of Babel, but today let's talk more about how that rebellion marked a downturn in God's restoration plan that could only be solved by Jesus. The Tower of Babel story is well known, but very misunderstood. Post-flood, God repeated his command for humanity to spread and populate the earth. However, people defied this by attempting to build a tower with intentions to bring God down to them. Ancient ziggurats were giant temple structures or meeting places for gods. It was where people brought the gods down to them. It wasn't the building that was the issue here. It was the meaning behind it and how it was in direct opposition to Yahweh's directive. Another less-known perspective on Babel is provided in Deuteronomy chapter 32. Let's look at verses 8 and 9. When the Most High gave to the nations their inheritance, when he divided mankind, he fixed the borders of the peoples according to the number of the sons of God. But the Lord's portion is his people, Jacob, his allotted heritage. As a result of the rebellion, God divided humanity and allocated nations to the sons of God. Now, if your Bible translation says sons of Israel instead of sons of God, I'd suggest a different translation. This is a perfect example of a point I made earlier about Dead Sea Scroll translation clarifications. There is actually a major theological problem with the sons of Israel interpretation. At Babel, Israel didn't even exist yet as a nation. This terminology, sons of God, validated by the Dead Sea Scrolls, highlights that after Babel, God, in a sense, took a step back and allowed his divine council members to govern the nations. When we understand this concept, it starts to make a bit more sense as to why all these other nations seem to worship all these different divine beings. So why does this matter? The entire Old Testament centers on Israel's conflict with these other gods and their followers. Despite God's judgment at Babel, he always intended to reclaim the nations. His covenant in Genesis chapter 12 with Abraham aimed to bless all families on earth through Abraham's lineage, and Paul reiterated this in Acts chapter 17 verses 26 and 27. From one man he has made every nationality to live over the whole earth and has determined their appointed times and the boundaries of where they live. He did this so that they might seek God, and perhaps they might reach out and find him, though he is not far from each one of us. Now, Moses warned Israel against worshiping other gods, emphasizing Yahweh's plan for nations to seek him. In various different ways, Yahweh judged these sons of God, promising their eventual mortality in Psalms 82, verses 6 and 7. I said, "You are gods, you are all sons of the Most High. However, you will die like humans and fall like any other ruler." Cosmic geography in the Old Testament also illustrates a division of Yahweh's sacred territory and other territories. Some references to this are in Daniel chapter 10, when he discusses divine princes actually ruling nations. In 1 Samuel chapter 26, verse 19, we see David lamenting about being driven out into the land of these other gods. But my favorite story is actually Naaman, though. Check this out. Naaman, a commander of the Syrian army, suffered from leprosy. He sought healing from the prophet Elisha in Israel. Elisha instructed Naaman to wash 7 times in the Jordan River, and upon doing so, he was miraculously healed. Naaman then acknowledged Yahweh as the only true God. Then Naaman requested to take 2 mule loads of dirt back to Syria. He believed that in a foreign land it would honor the God of Israel to worship on holy ground, showing his faith and devotion. We'll talk more about this later, but cosmic geography does continue to persist into the New Testament too. Time and time again, we will see that Jesus' time on earth was partly to reverse the issues associated with this rebellion. In another example, Paul describes hostile divine beings in terms that denote geographic rulership in both Ephesians and Colossians. So what are the key takeaways here? The cosmic geography resulting from Babel frames the Old Testament and actually carries over into the Gospel too. Jesus' work eventually transforms Satan's domain into God's territory, advancing the kingdom. Believers, despite their geographical location, live on the spiritual war front lines, and every congregation that gathers is now a sacred space. This narrative will be further explored in later episodes. As always, I appreciate you for watching and have a great day.